Hello everybody and welcome to my video, Getting Tidier. I hope you're all well and I hope you've had a good start to 2025. So as you know, I've got lots of plans of what I'd like to do during the year. I've got my overarching aspirations and then I've got objectives for each room which I will talk to you about over the coming weeks. To be honest, I had to check what date it was. Doesn't that always happen? I always lose track of what date it is between Christmas and New Year. And then because I'm not yet back to work, I had to double check that it was the 2nd. So I had a really lovely New Year's Day. We got up really late because we'd been out very late on New Year's Eve. And then we had lunch and then we decided to go out to Walsingham, which I'll talk a little bit about right at the very end of the video for those of you that are interested, because I know not everybody is. So we spent some time Walsingham and then came back. By the time we got back, it was nearly dark. I did my 30 minutes of walking and then today my husband went back to work. Me and my daughter wanted to do some bits out in the house really, so she had got homework to do. I really need to make a point at the start of the holidays to read the homework myself. I know many of you will think, oh, you don't need to do that. She's 12 years old. But for example, she said to me that she needs to revise for a chemistry test. And the teacher had said, well, if you plan your time really well, you won't need to do much over the holidays. But actually, she's got to produce like a written document for revision. So she's now got to do that. And also she had got art homework. Which she needed to cut out this butterfly and then she needed to put the butterfly onto some fabric, and then she started getting upset and started crying because the teacher had packed her yellow and a piece of batik that was not hers. But I said, well, you do need to just double check what the teacher has written on your homework because it says that this is just the practice. This is not the actual thing. So don't worry that it's not your batik. Don't worry it's not the colour that you particularly want. This is just the practice. The homework was meant to be for an hour, but if I'm honest, I don't think you could really get much done with an hour. I mean, when you're doing like quite fine sewing and spending time cutting out little pieces of fabric and threading the needle and all the kind of intricate work that you do with sewing, an hour soon disappears. So she probably spent, well, many hours. And then my dad came round, which was nice. I wasn't necessarily expecting him because often there's a reason why he can't come round in the holidays, looking after his partner's dog or looking after his partner's granddaughter or something else. But that was nice that he was able to come round, so that was good. And then we've had dinner. So I managed to get a few things done in the house. I'm starting the year with the mindset of getting rid of things. So like, for example, I had that box of all those Klingons, you know, the ones that were under the sofa. And then I was going to declutter them elsewhere. And then my husband started saying about them being collectible. But like I said to him today, is he going to take a photograph and put them on eBay? Because if he's not, I just think it's better to see if the charity shop can get some money for them. They're not going to be worth that much. Although just looking over at his screen, he's found 3 Klingons that are being advertised for $10.99, 3 vintage Klingons. But I think you've just really got to be strict with your time. And like we talked about the other day, if you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. So you can see in the kitchen, I'm making a point to shine the sink every evening. Now I've had a couple of evenings where I've been left with something that really needs to soak. So I have shined the sink, but I have left that to soak. I'm kind of bending the rules slightly, but I'm making a point of clearing up every evening. So when we come down in the morning, everything's much easier. Not necessarily easier for me because I'm lucky enough that my husband normally does breakfast. But just means the side is clear when he does breakfast in the morning. I'm also trying to get on top of all the washing. So I've had a period, probably a couple of weeks, where I haven't done that much washing, and it's built up. Also, my husband cleared out his chair in the bedroom, of which I would say probably half of that, 3/4 of that has been put into the linen basket. So I asked him if he could bring that down. So I have got quite a lot of washing still to do. So my plan is to get on top of that, and then I'm going to put on a washing load every other day. And yes, I am going to get myself a new dryer. I haven't looked into which one yet. I'm going to ask my husband to research on the best ones, but I'm going to get a really decent dryer for myself. I might get one which plugs in, which heats and dries the clothes at the same time, or I might just get an ordinary one, but I'm going to get one which is not broken. And then the one that I've got, I probably will keep hold of, and I might still use that. And then if it breaks it again in another place, I will then put that in the bin. Also, you can see in the video, I decided to sort out that dreaded corner, which ends up being a dumping ground. And you'll see me in the video, because loads and loads of stamps over Christmas have been put there. So I was just making all the stamps neat, cutting them all, and I'll give them to someone that we know who collects stamps for charity. So I managed to clear the whole of the end of the cabinet, which I know people will be shouting at the TV, because I know several people always notice when that bit starts building up. And then while I stood there, I thought, oh, how long ago was it that I did my daughter's cupboard? My daughter's got a cupboard of like snacks and sweets. Many of you will have heard me say, may remember, she doesn't eat much by way of sweets at all. So the sweets that she does get, she's really excited to be given sweets. She just doesn't particularly want to eat them or have any enjoyment in eating them. Her enjoyment is getting them and being excited about getting them. A bit like the advent calendars, those 2 advent calendars, really excited. Opened them every single morning without fail, her chocolate ones, opened the window, told me what the picture was of, and all the little advent calendars were just chocolates, were just all put in a pile on the piano. And when I said to her, do you want to have a couple of those for dessert? No, not really. So I decided to look through that cupboard, and there were some things, even though I sorted it out, I thought, a couple of months ago, there were some more things in there which have gone out of date. So it makes me wonder how long ago it was. But there were some sweets I put in the bin. She can eat those Love Heart sweets. I don't know if you have them where you live. But I said, would you like to keep these Love Heart sweets? And she said, that made her tummy feel a bit funny last time she had them. So I put them in the bin. Now, you know that I don't like food waste, and I do still feel like we have probably too much food waste in the house, largely because making sure that meals are planned in line with what I've bought, and things like these sweets and chocolates. But I suppose the way I look at it as, yes, I could encourage her to eat those sweets, couldn't I? I could encourage her to eat them, but I feel like that's encouraging her to use her body as a bin. So she doesn't really like them. What is the point of eating them? So I managed to clear out quite a lot in this cupboard, which I was really pleased about. The other thing I was really pleased about was while we were at home, I wanted her to try one of the free from cakes that we've got in the cupboard, which has got egg. So a couple of years ago, we got to the point where she was able to tolerate a little bit of egg baked into a cake. But cutting a long story short, what happened was there was one day where she was supposed to have half of a brownie and she ate 2. And that was just the volume, even though there's only a tiny, tiny amount of egg in these brownies. 2 brownies was too much for her whole system. And she was really, really poorly from it. So we stopped it all again. So she didn't have any. But she really likes these jam tarts, which are free from wheat, free from dairy. But they've got pasteurised egg, probably about 10th on the list. So I said to my husband, why don't we try that again? So I cut a quarter of it. And she's managed to tolerate a quarter. She had a little bite. I said, have a bite. Don't know. Some of her allergies are much more severe, and there's absolutely no way we could, for example, say have a little bit of dairy, have a little bit of peanuts. Absolutely no way. But because we know that she'd previously tolerated egg in baked form, pasteurised egg, we thought we'd try it again. That was probably about 2 years ago that she had these 2 brownies. And I explained to her at the time, because she's not allowed, like, you know, when she was younger, we were quite strict with certain foods. But then, of course, Mummy and Daddy weren't there to tell her, so she decided to eat 2 of them. And she was really, really poorly from that. Her lips all swelled and she was sick. And I think that was a big shock to her. So good news that she's managed to have a quarter of one of these jam tarts. So we'll do this now on a weekly basis, and then we'll build it up to a half and 3/4. And it's quite good because she's due to have another appointment for her allergies. So we'll see how that goes. So you can see in the video I managed to get the corner cleared. Now there's some foods that I brought in there. There's a hamper that my dad got for us, which was lovely as part of the Christmas present. So I need to make a point of putting these foods all in their right places. So there's like tomato ketchup, there's some cake bits, there's pasta, tea bags, etc, etc. So I spent some time putting them all in their right places. Only had one accident, which I don't think the camera managed to catch. I couldn't quite believe it. I squashed in something into the cupboard. I think it was some pasta, and as I did, the sugar fell into a saucepan filled with water that had baked beans in it. And we'd put water in it just to make sure the baked beans came off easily, and the sugar fell straight in there. And you know, sod's law, it went upside down, didn't it? It went so there's no way that I could keep it, unfortunately. So that ended up going in the bin. So do some more in the kitchen, and then you'll see me sorting out some more of my washing. You'll also see me tidying up the table where there's lots of craft activities and so on going on. I get distracted a little bit when I'm at the piano because I was putting some of the piano books away, so I had a little play, so I had to cut the video. So I left a little bit for you to see, but I cut most of that. And then I end doing some more in the kitchen and in the dining room. So I'm going to go through some of your comments now. So thank you to those of you that take the time to add comments to my channel. I love reading the comments on my channel, and thank you to those of you that take the time to like my video. So the first comment is from Cammy Hell. Cammy's the one who cleans for free. Cammy said, it was nice to hear how you spend your Christmas. I just love when you read my comments because it feels so nice to hear my words in your accent. Oh, I love your accent so much, I can't get enough of it. By the way, I'm the same when it comes to having to prompt someone to say thank you. It doesn't feel nice. No, I know. And someone did say to me, well, you don't give things in order to say thank you. And that's right. You don't give things for someone to say thank you. You give them like for the child in this case. But really, I just think it's the right and decent thing for someone to say thank you, because I was left thinking that the books were still sitting in reception or had been given to the wrong person. And maybe he thought, oh, Emma said that she was going to bring those books in. And she hasn't. I'm still waiting. I didn't actually know he'd got the books. Cammy says, it doesn't feel, yeah. I wish more people would teach their children the lost art of thank you cards and such. Yeah, I think that's really important. Next comment was from Brooke. Thank you for the video. It was interesting to hear how your family has different traditions and games for Christmas. Both your husband and daughter really seem to enjoy hosting people in your home. My husband does a lot of work when people come round because most of the cooking is down to him. So he did everything when my family came round on Boxing Day. He's really very good like that. And then he did loads of the games. It's just a shame that not everybody joined in the games, or they sort of like half joined in them. But the What 3 Words one, that game was really good. Brooke says, I had to Google chicken goujon as I had never heard of it before. The chicken tenders sound yummy. I guess goujon is French. Brooke says, I laughed when you said your daughter left her bag at Nando's. We were to eat there in Chicago but ended up ordering pizza instead. Then the next day my friend, sister and daughter tried it out and really enjoyed it. Do you mean that there's a Nando's in America? I didn't know that. We're going to eat there in Chicago. I didn't know that Nando's was in America. I had mentioned your daughter's bag in a previous video because I'm awful with leaving things. It's also rare that I make it out of the house without returning at least once for something. I look forward to hearing what you do for New Year's. And I did reply back to Brooke asking her if she lost things. And I just replied to say, do you mean that you lose things in the house? Because I still don't know where my bank card is. I often misplace my purse, face cream or phone. But Brooke says she doesn't lose things in the house as much as she used to because she doesn't have much clutter now. But her problem is forgetting to take what she needs when she leaves the house and leaving the items where I stop. That's interesting, that is. I often leave the house and realise that I've got to go back for my sunglasses or back for something that I've missed or forgotten. But what I also do is when I come in, I just drop things. And for example, my daughter just comes in and puts things on the stairs, which I'm trying to get her out of the habit of. Easier said than done. Next comment was from Cynthia. You mentioned some Christmas traditions that I've never heard of before here in the US. First of all, I've not heard of the Christmas Eve box. Here in the US, some families open one gift on the 24th and all the rest on Christmas morning. Some families open all their gifts from each other on Christmas Eve. For the children, Santa Claus comes overnight and leaves his presents under the tree, unwrapped. Oh, really? He also fills the stockings that are hung from the mantle or any other suitable place. I've not heard of a Christmas pillowcase or having Father Christmas leave his gifts in their rooms. I find the differences in customs and traditions so interesting. Our gathering was small but lovely and my ham dinner turned out very well. Except I burnt the ham glaze on the stove when I prepared it. I walked away for 2 minutes and that's all it took. Oh, how annoying. We used apricot preserves instead. I bet it was still yummy. But how annoying. It's really frustrating when things catch, isn't it? So I replied and said how interesting that is. And actually some, people do slightly different things in the United Kingdom. And Brooke also replied, and she said that she was talking about this on Facebook with some of her friends. And that was quite interesting. Very interesting. So I just explained that in our house and sort of our tradition, really I've followed exactly the same as what my mum and dad did. And I think it's similar to what my husband had. But as a little girl, my mum used to say, how many pillowcases would you like to put out? And I used to stand there thinking, oh, well, if I ask for 5, that will mean I get more presents. So I'd ask for, say, 4 or 5, and they'd all be put on the end of my bed. Then in the morning, sometimes in the middle of the night, I'd wake up and have a quick look. But usually in the morning, I was not allowed in my mum and dad's room until it was 7 o'clock. So I'd always check the time, and I'd wake up in the morning and I'd looked at the end of my bed to see if the pillowcases had been moved. And usually all the pillowcases that I put out, Father Christmas had used. And I'd shout out to my sister, he's been. And then once it got to 7 o'clock, I was not allowed to open any presents. Once it got to 7 o'clock, I would then drag the pillowcases into my mum and dad's room. And that is what would happen. All the presents were clearly marked as to who they were from. So there'd be presents from my mum and dad there, presents from my aunts, presents from my godmother, presents from my family in America. And that had all been organised for Father Christmas to deliver them all. Absolutely magical. And Shawnee said, yes, absolutely, you can just use water in a carpet cleaner. I forgot to add that in my previous comment about doing the water rinse if you use detergent, My mum stopped using detergents in our carpet cleaner about 30 years ago. She only uses water and it does an amazing job. So N. Shawnee, can you let me know which one you are? You're America, aren't you, Natasha? I was going to say, can you let me know which brand you use? Because I'm like 99% certain now I'm going to get one of these. I love a good gadget. In our opinion, soaps are for tough spots and our hands cleaned with a scrub brush, and this can be rinsed out with the carpet cleaner. Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, put some soap on, use a brush, and then go over it with a carpet cleaner. We are a very chemical-free house and detergents tend to have neurological toxins in them. I completely agree, Natasha. Completely agree. Fragrances and disinfectants are neurotoxins and endocrine disruptors. A woman after my own heart. I hope you have a happy new year. Love from Natasha. And you know, it's very interesting. I was having a conversation with my daughter. We went into a shop. What would that be? That would have been when we went up to York. And they've got a whole range of perfumes for children. And of course, you know, she likes the thought of having a perfume. And there is one that she likes, a Dior one that I've said to you she can have it when she's 16 or 17. I'll get it for her birthday. I might change that to 18 now. But because there's so much research happening about how these perfumes can affect hormones. And these children are wearing them all. And I do agree. We do use, obviously I use detergent in the washing machine, but I try not to use too many chemicals. I think it's causing a lot of problems. And then Natasha says, I've watched you all year grow your declutter muscles and your beautiful confidence grow into your decluttering. I hope that made sense. Well, thanks to your channel and a few others, I'm ready to start my channel. I've thought about starting it long enough, 5 years to be precise. People like you have helped me get past the starting slump. You had no idea you were doing this, but it's particularly thanks to you nonetheless. So thank you very much. Oh, that's nice. So, is your channel under Natasha Sawney? In which case, Natasha, comment on here and let me know. And then people on my channel can find you, can't they? And we can all follow you. Karen Davis says, I was watching live, but took so long writing a comment that you were finished before I could post my comment. Oh, sounds like you had a lovely Christmas. We did too. We don't have Boxing Day here in the US. So I did ask about this. I wasn't certain what that meant. Whether that means, does everybody go back to Christmas, go back to work the day after? And Karen says, yeah, most people I know have to work on the 26th. Karen is retired, so they just spent time hanging around the house and eating less leftover Christmas ham sandwiches. Very good. It's interesting with our bank holidays. Someone said to me, you don't get as many holidays from work as what they do in the United Kingdom. So I forget how many days a year I get. I think being part-time, I get about 18 days. But for instance, my husband, he gets 30 days plus bank holidays. So there's 30 days paid off. Which works out to be quite a few weeks. So that's pretty good. But I know everywhere in the world is slightly different. Next comment is from Catherine B. And she says, hi, new subscriber. What is your job if you don't mind me asking? So I said about how I've got a few different jobs. And I'll talk about them in one of my next videos. And I asked her where she's from, and she's from Northern Ireland. So we've now got a few people following us from Ireland and a few people following us from Northern Ireland. And of course, my daughter has Northern Irish ancestors. Her great-granddad was an Ulsterman. So you're welcome, Catherine. Thank you for following me on my journey and following my channel. And in terms of my job, those of you that have been here a while will already know this. Those of you that don't, I've got a few different things. I've recently given up one job. I said I'm not going to do it for next year. But my primary job is that I work connected to crisis management, incident management, things like Basically, when someone's day goes wrong, I'm involved. So I'm involved in the planning and the assessment, risk assessment and analysis in advance. I'm involved in creating certain documents for response and then exercising those documents, and then I'm involved in the event of a major incident. So it could be something like the IT system goes down, could be something like a pandemic, could be something like a supplier, significant critical supplier fails. So that's my kind of number one job. That's the job that I do the most amount of hours. Then my second job is that I'm a tutor to adults in business, HR, learning and development type areas, my primary areas, and I deliver business workshops for apprenticeships around level 3 level at the moment. And then we also have our own business. So I'm also director in my business, and I do quite a lot of the administration and I do all the management in relation to that. So that's connected to property. So a few different things. I split my time. My number one job, my number one priority is being a mother and my daughter, and everything else has to fit round her. So I normally do around 18.5 hours for job number one. Job number two is about 14.5, 15. But job number one, really, the job is not hourly. It's the work required to do the job. So I regularly do more hours than that. When I was full-time in that role, I used to do about 50 hours a week. But when you're part-time, it's a little bit different. When you're only being paid part of a salary, you're not so inclined to do full-time hours when you're only being paid for part-time hours, if you see what I mean. But from January the 2nd, from today, I've gone up to 22 hours. And bear in mind that I like to have Mondays off, and I do a lot of the school runs. It is all a bit of a juggle. So you will have heard me, sometimes I make trips to Great Yarmouth. Sometimes I go further up north. That's all connected to my own business. But yeah, there are some things where obviously my daughter is involved because she comes with us on the business trips, and she enjoys coming. So we always combine it so that we'll do some work and we'll look around a toy shop, or we'll go and walk along the beach and look for sea glass. So there'll always be elements of it that she will enjoy. One of the things that she really, really loved is we hired a van one time and we sat in a line, the three of us at the front, and she loved that. And we're due to go up in a couple of weeks, and she said, will we be hiring the van again? And then the last thing that I do is I do consultancy for myself. So I work self-employed as well, although I do not advertise that work. It's just if people contact me via LinkedIn sometimes and say, would you consider doing this? So then I have a look at the work. The last time I did any consultancy work, though, has got to be probably 2 years, I'd say. So that's not very often. And there was a piece of work that I quoted for, but I think he kind of misread me and he misread the work. So what he did was, I had a meeting with him online and he outlined what he wanted me to do. So I priced it up. It was competitive, given my experience, my knowledge. It is very competitively priced compared to if you went to like a lot of other consultants. There's not many consultants in Norfolk that can do what I do. So if he found one in Norfolk, then he'd be lucky. But otherwise, he'd have to, if you look at London prices or Manchester prices, he'd be paying double. So he then went through my quote and he said, how much would it be if he wrote the presentation and I delivered it? And I think he misunderstood me, because if I'm going to deliver a presentation, I'm going to have wanted to write that presentation. I'm not going to want to deliver something that he's written and then just turn up and read it through. I think he thought that would add, that would be beneficial for his managers to hear the message that he wanted to get over from me, which I do understand. But I just messaged him back and said, having reflected on the work further, I decided that probably wasn't suitable and it'd be best for him to find someone else. So that's a bit of a summary of my jobs. So thank you for asking, Catherine. They're the main things that I do. The next comment that I wanted to go through was from Choco 4912. Choco says, I definitely will look out for future videos. Listening to your voice and narrations feels like listening to a good music. Oh, that's nice. Someone else said that sounded like a good friend, which was lovely. Paper Playground says, love seeing all the beautiful architecture. The fishbowl idea is excellent, and habit stacking. So pairing your drive immediately followed by a walk. Oh, that's interesting. Is an excellent idea. I'm still not sure about Fly Lady. I tried it with kids and a job and it was just too much. Even retired, I quit it again. Happy New Year. Blessings from Texas. I think what I'm going to do, Paper Playground, is I'm going to do bits. I'm going to do bits and pieces. Now, one thing I also wanted to mention was I've said a couple of times about how we don't seem to be hearing anything more from Barbara in Islands. Do you remember she won the first giveaway that I did along with Andrea? And she would comment on every single video and she'd talk all about her sons and everything. And Brooke said, I thought that you said that you were going to contact her. Now, I thought that I did have the address, but afterwards I realised what I did. If you remember, I gave my email address for Andrea and for Barbara to contact me on. And Andrea did that, so no one saw her address. But Barbara put her whole address on my YouTube, one of my videos. And I was so worried about, goodness me, anyone and anybody can see this. I deleted it from my channel. So I sent her parcel off. I've therefore got no record of her address. I did think to myself about the proof of postage, but I don't think I've got that even anymore. I hope she's okay. She was a lovely lady. She was always commenting on my videos. Now, you would have just now seen me attempting to add the strings to that mandolin. So I got mandolin strings for a Christmas present last year. I think it was last year. Maybe it was my birthday. I think it was my birthday. And my mum said over Christmas, oh, have you put those strings on that I bought you? And I thought, oh, they've been sitting in that basket in the front room. I'm going to do that. And I spent ages, while my daughter was doing her sewing, I've spent ages and ages and ages. And one of the tuning pegs is far too tight. And it's so difficult to tune. I didn't realise that on the instrument you've got 2 Gs, 2 Ds, 2 As and 2 Es. So you have to then tune them to each other. And I'm very good at tuning notes from D upwards, quite high notes. But I don't have a particularly good ear for deep notes. I struggle. So I used a tuner that I've got to tune in, and I still didn't manage to get it. My dad came round and I said, because I didn't obviously put the pegs in initially because it's a second-hand instrument. So I said to my dad, what do you think is to loosen it? What do you think is to tighten it? So we had this conversation. So we tried to do it and it was too tight for him. He put a cloth on it and he said, I'm worried that I'm going to break it. If I do it too much, I'm worried that it's going to break. So after spending several hours on it, I decided to have a little break and I'm going to go back to it. So it's the A string. I'm going to try to put the A string on again, and I'm going to tune the E and the D and the G. But sometimes it's just I'd spent so long on it, and it's the first time I've ever done it before, and it is different to a violin and viola. It's not the same. So I thought I'd have a break and I'll go back to it like another day and see whether I can work it out. Failing that, I thought maybe locally there might be somebody who's got some sort of experience, but it's not that frequent, is it? Mandolin players. So something that I haven't said to you about that I'm also doing for this year is I've decided for each month I'm going to choose a particular composer to focus on. So I will make a point of learning a little bit about that composer and playing more of that composer's music. So for the month of January, I'm going to learn more about Morricone, Ennio Morricone. He's an Italian composer, and if ever you're wanting in the next few days, you want a little bit of time just to sit and relax, close your eyes and listen to Morricone, The Mission, or Gabriel's Oboe. It's the most stunningly beautiful piece, and I can remember exactly where I was and what I was doing when I heard it for the first time, and I just started crying. Absolutely incredible piece. He was born in Rome, actually, in 1928. Sadly, no longer alive. He died in 2020, aged 91. But he's written music for a wide variety of different films, and is, acclaimed around the world. But I want to learn more about him and more about some of the pieces that he composed. So that's one of the little challenges that I'm doing, which I haven't yet shared with you about. Each month I'm going to choose a composer. And it's interesting because Karen did say to me, well, what are you doing for self-care and well-being? Well, that's one of the things that I'm doing. I thought that was so lovely though, Karen, you saying that, asking me, well, what are you doing for self-care? I thought that was really kind that you would be so thoughtful to be thinking about that. So I'm now right towards the end of my video. So you can see I'm in the kitchen, I'm clearing up. I've done a lot in the kitchen today, and I've got to the point where I can shine the sink. So as I'm close to the end of the video, I wanted to share with you a little bit about our trip to Walsingham. Now, I really love Walsingham. I first learnt about Walsingham as a child and went out there as a child. My mum and dad then they took me after I'd learned about it at school, and it's incredible in terms of the history. So Walsingham in Norfolk, England, has been a place of pilgrimage since the Middle Ages, and is actually considered by many people to be one of the 4 great shrines, compared alongside Jerusalem, Rome, and Santiago de Compostela. So it is considered very, very important. Back in 1061, Racheldis, she had a number of visions where the Virgin Mary came to her, and she was shown the house in Nazareth where the angel Gabriel made his revelation of the birth of Jesus. And Our Lady asked Racheldis, so Mary asked Racheldis to build a replica of the Holy House in Walsingham. So she then worked to create this. And there have been many miracles connected to Little Nazareth, which are recorded in various ways. There was one where King Edward I was saved from a piece of falling masonry, could have died. Also, a spring in one of her visions, Lady Racheldis was told that a spring of water was going to come up, and literally that following day a spring appeared, and Racheldis then turned it into a well, and that is the water that you see me drink from. It is really quite incredible. Now, of course, given all the history and everything, there was various things that happened. So Mary was removed, and the gold and silver ornaments, etc., were removed. Certainly when there was obviously the changes with Henry VIII. And then a man built it all up again. And now there are lots and lots of people that visit and pilgrim, and there's a big procession every single year, which we have been part of before, and some people actually do the last part of the procession with no shoes on. So you could see how interesting the inside of the church is. Every time we go, we see something different. And then the outside of the grounds are lovely. Whatever time of the year that you go, you can see how they're all lit up. You've got the different stations of the cross. And then also there's a replica of the place where Jesus was placed with the replica stone, which is very interesting. So I also wanted just to say, for those of you that are interested, and I know I've got quite a few Christian followers, I purchased some prayer cards, and right at the very end of the video you'll see a clip of some candles, and there's 3 blue candles on the left hand side and 1 white one, and that white one, I said a prayer for those people that follow my channel that have had some difficulties over the course of the last few months in relation to their health. So we said a little prayer there, and right in front of the beautiful Mary figure. If you want to see Mary, then please look online. You won't see that on my video because I don't like to record video or photograph altars. Actually, I actively try not to do that. So you won't see that on the video. But if you would like one of the prayer cards, they won't cost much to post. So please let me know. I bought quite a few with the view that if anyone's interested, then I would be really, really pleased and happy to send you one. So thank you very much for watching my video. I hope you found that interesting. I hope that spurred you on if you're in the middle of doing some housework in your own house, or if you've done some sorting out and you're just sitting down and having a break. Thank you very, very much for watching my video. Thank you for your comments, for your support, your likes, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye!